Okay, first things first, sorry for the setup. It looks awful, I'm well aware. I still don't have a video light and I'm currently trying to use as much of the sunlight coming through my window as possible. So yeah, just watch me in post, edit the hell out of this and make it look passable. Welcome back, hope you're doing well. For those of you that are new to this channel, I am a British basketball videographer and I create content for my own page called JLR Videography. I'm not quite sure when this video will be going out, but we are currently well into the playoffs. Knowing me, this video will be out well after the season is over. And I've been very busy towards the end of the season working on some freelance video projects, which has in some cases meant that I've had to beef up my videography kit. And seeing as it's been roughly a year since I bought my first DSLR, I thought it'd be cool to look at the various gadgets and gizmos. I'm not saying that. The various items I own in my kit that I use for my current video work and give you some thoughts on what I'd recommend if you're interested in any sort of videography work. Please note, I'm not an expert and there are people on YouTube who know way more about this stuff than I do. I'd say I've definitely learned a lot as time has gone on, and I feel like my perspective could be of a different sort of value. I think there are a lot of people who will tell you what the best thing is to buy and just say, buy that one. But what I want to offer is a more honest opinion and give some context as to why I chose specifically these things and how I've been able to use them effectively. We can already see the light is going, so we're gonna rattle on with this. With that said, we're gonna start with the main part of my kit and the most important part, arguably, my camera. I'm just gotta get this set up. Sorry everyone. There we go. So before I bought this, I spent months trying to research the best cameras that would be suited to the work that I wanted to do. And at the time, it was the GH5, Panasonic. But I feel like if you did the same searches now, this would still come up as a highly recommended camera. It is that good. I feel like I'm trying to sell it to you. I'm not. There are some Sony cameras that are very nice out there, but this one does quite a lot, and it does hold up against some of the newer cameras that are coming out. One of the things that I didn't realize until very recently is how lightweight this is. I'll need to work out how much this actually weighs. I'll put a figure on the screen if I can find it, but this is a very neat camera that I can use for long stretches of the day. If I'm filming a tournament, for instance, or several games back to back, I don't really get tired having this around my neck. It's not a feature that you tend to consider when you get a camera, but I feel like if it was slightly heavier, then I would have a problem. So in terms of shooting, this can shoot 4K 50 frames a second. It's something that I mentioned in a previous video and something that I pretty much use as standard when I'm filming. Having that 4K resolution helps me to punch in on certain parts of the frame or certain players, and having 50 frames a second allows for that nice slow-mo if you are exporting at 25 frames a second. So it produces very versatile footage and means I don't have to keep switching between, 25 frames and then 50 and then, I don't know, 120. Other features this has, it has a touchscreen display which you can swivel around like that, which is very useful. It has 2 SD card slots in the side here. The battery life is pretty good. I can film pretty much an entire game on just one battery. And the built-in stabilization is probably one of the best things about this camera for filming basketball. When I've been filming down the far end of the court, having the stabilization just means the footage is so much smoother and I can capture the action a lot easier without having to worry about sort of little hand movements while I'm recording. I've even tried doing some kind of dolly shots with this very recently, and having a warp stabilizer in Premiere, you kind of almost get the effect that you'd have with a gimbal. So, you can definitely do a lot with this camera without even using a gimbal to get that smooth motion. One of the things I forgot to mention is that there are custom camera settings on the top here. There are 3, well actually there are 5 I think, because 3 has 3 different settings within it. So for this, I'm kind of just revealing all my secrets here, but I don't care. So for this, I have C1 is set to my usual 4K 50 frames. If I want to go slow-mo, I go with C2. And then for interviews and stuff, I'll go C3. Since I'm revealing secrets here, I thought I might as well show this, although I'm guessing there are other people that do this. I don't think it's a secret as much. When I'm recording, I tend to record knowing that I'm going to be exporting in a 1:1 aspect ratio. So you kind of want to keep all the action as close to the center of the frame as possible. So I actually have, and I don't know how easy this will be to see, I actually have markings on the viewfinder that will tell me exactly where the cutoff points are. So I know that as long as I'm keeping the action in this grid, it's going to be far easier for me to export. I won't have to digitally move the image around to keep it in the frame. Again, it's a small feature, but it just saves so much time when you're, filming games every weekend and you've just got to get the stuff out. So that's pretty much all the good stuff I have to say about this camera. Now let's talk about the long list of things I hate. No, I actually don't. I don't have that many things I hate about it at all. In fact, hate's a strong word. I don't dislike this camera in any way, but there are a few things that I wish it did slightly better. First off, it's not great in low light, as I've mentioned before, and that's primarily due to the fact that it has a smaller sensor. It's not a full frame sensor, but it is a micro four thirds sensor. I'm not even going to begin to talk about that because I have no idea what that means. The low light wouldn't be so much of an issue if I wasn't filming indoors in generally poorly lit sports halls. There are ways I've managed to work around it by bumping up the ISO, which unfortunately can end up ruining the image slightly. That's why the Sony cameras, I think, tend to be more favorable within basketball videography, especially the Sony A7 series. And while I'd say this is a great camera to get, I'd be lying if I said that the Sony A7 isn't also a good option. Other than that, I'd say this camera has been a brilliant purchase, and I have got so much more to learn about it because I feel like I've just sort of scratched the surface on what it can do. But for everything I need it to do, it is pretty awesome. So that was the camera. Now I might as well go on to talk about the lenses. The lens that I've got on this camera right now is a 12-60 and is the first lens that I started using with this because it came with the camera. For how cheap this is, it is actually a really good lens, and I've used it so many times. It's in that kind of perfect focal length that you can get nice wide angle shots and close-ups with that 4K resolution. The only downside to it though is the f-stop does change when you zoom in. So it goes from being f3, I think, to f6. And that basically means you end up having less light being let into the camera. And so again, with it not already being that good in low light anyway, it makes it that much harder. It also means if you're trying to capture action on the move and you suddenly have to zoom out, your ISO has to be set to a certain figure that it's not going to look like too much of a difference going from suddenly dark to almost overexposed. But I can't lie, having this lens as the first lens for me to use was just perfect, to be honest, because it's just covered me for so many different projects. However, as good as that lens is, it's not my favorite, and it's not the one that I've used the most in the past few months. That would be the step up from that lens, which is the 35-100mm. One of the things that separates this one from the first one is that it has a built-in stabilizer, which the first one doesn't. And having that lower f-stop means that you just get more light with your image and you haven't got to bump up the ISO as much. And for me, it has just been so good at getting close up to the action when filming basketball. It might be slightly too close when you're sat on a baseline where there's not much of a gap between you and the court, but getting the shots down the far end of the court is just so good. You haven't got to punch in at all in post. You can just get it in the lens. It is by far my favorite, and I'm definitely going to continue using this next season. I'm excited to see what other shots I can get with it, to be honest. So those were the lenses that I typically use. Now let's talk about microphones. So the microphone that you'll typically see me using at a game day is this lovely Rode VideoMic Go. I've had it for so many years actually, and for the longest time I didn't use it. The camera that I'm currently filming on, my AX100, didn't have the right shoe adapter for me to be able to attach it to the camera. So I never used this, and it's nice now having a camera that I can use it with. It is good for what I need it for. I think one of the good things about this one in comparison to some of the other Rode video mics is that it doesn't require batteries. It is all powered through the cable, and there's not really much else to say about it. It does the job. And I think you will always want to use, preferably, a external microphone with a DSLR, because the built-in microphone doesn't tend to be as good. The other microphone, the one that I'm currently using, is a very recent purchase that I had to use specifically for filming interviews, is the Rode Wireless Go 2. This is the microphone. That's it. I could not believe how small and nifty these things are, but they are really, really good for just on-the-go audio capture when you haven't got time to kind of set everything up. When I was at uni, we had these radio mics that were bigger than this, far more frustrating to use, and just had more of a setup required, because you had to have an audio interface to plug them in, and you had to have batteries. There's none of that with this. These are easily chargeable, far smaller, and you can clip them on just as they are. So if I wanted to just clip this here, I could do that. It has a microphone in the transmitter, which is insane. I'm very used to using a lav, as you can see, which is why I bought this as well. But you actually don't even need it with this microphone. I've seen Jamie use these for BBL and WBBL interviews, and they're just so convenient, I think is the word. And you get a good audio quality from it. If anyone out there is planning on doing any kind of courtside interviews or interviews on game day, and you need to have something to quickly set up, I would definitely recommend these. So the last thing really that I want to mention is my backpack, which I will try and model for the camera. It's quite big, but that is mainly because I have such a large laptop, and this was the only one that could fit the laptop inside. Before buying this, I definitely underestimated the importance of having a backpack when you're going to events or just a shoot, and you need to have everything carefully stored so that it's not going to get damaged, but also it's stored in a way that is not, it saves space. When I was going to games at the start of the season, I was taking my Rode VideoMic in the packaging that I bought it in, because I didn't have anything else to transport it in. It's not ideal. And it's also not ideal having to sit at the sideline, taking out the box and taking all the bits out and then putting the cardboard box back in your bag. It doesn't look good. I wouldn't say this is a necessity for somebody doing videography work. In fact, I'll see if I can show you the camera bag that I used before this one. So it was actually just this. It was just this for my camera and my lens, and it had enough space for me to have all that in here. It's quite nice as well, being able to wear it kind of as I'm moving around, because it's just got the single strap. So it really depends on where you're at, how much kit you have, and what's best for you. So that kind of brings me to the end of this video, and I hope that for anyone watching who is interested in video work, this has been somewhat helpful to you. As I said, there are people who can talk about this stuff in far greater depth than I can, so if you're interested in any of it, do your research, read reviews, watch videos, just gather as much info as you can. That's my #1 tip. If there are any basketball content creators watching this, #1, give this video a like, but also let me know what equipment you use, what cameras you'd recommend, any helpful info. We can help each other out. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe for future content, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. Why did I do a thumbs up? Was there anything else I wanted to say? I don't think so. The lighting in this is awful. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done this entire video with this lighting. Oh, this is gonna be a terrible edit. I'm so sorry, everyone.